Tonight, we reveal a creature that shouldn't exist, an insect worm hybrid older than any dinosaur, feeding not on fish, but on crocodiles. Because in rivers that flow since time began, the crocodile has an enemy it cannot bite, cannot see, and cannot escape until it's too late. And you're about to meet him. The rivers of Earth are kingdoms of power and hunger. Crocodiles tear through the current, armored jaws closing over prey with prehistoric precision. Piranhas swarm in flashes of silver, turning the water red in seconds. Giant anacondas coil around everything that dares to move. For millions of years, this is how the story has gone. Predators ruling their domains, the strong devouring the weak. But what if the balance has never been real? What if something older, smaller, and infinitely more patient has always been watching beneath the surface, waiting for the kings to drift too close? Locals call it the giant river bug. They say it doesn't swim or strike like other predators. It rises from the mud, silent as decay itself. When the water goes still and the bubbles stop, that's when you know it's feeding. Because if you think we've already discovered every monster on Earth, subscribe to BeastFlix now, because tonight's story will make you question what's still alive beneath the mud. And stay until the end, because the proof of this creature isn't buried in myth, it's buried in mud. It started not in the Amazon, but in the cold stone of northern Canada. Paleontologists discovered something that looked less like an animal and more like a nightmare carved in stone, a fossil so strange it defied classification. They called it Hallucigenia. Half worm, half alien, its body was a spine-covered tube, walking on spindly legs that bent the wrong way. It had no eyes, no bones, and a mouth that scientists struggled to define. Some believed it was upside down for decades before they realized where the head even was. Hallucigenia lived over 500 million years ago, during the Cambrian explosion, the dawn of complex life. And yet, something about its structure feels disturbingly familiar. The spikes, the tubular body, the grasping limbs, like a prototype of something that shouldn't have vanished, something that could have adapted, evolved, and followed the rivers instead of the sea. It wasn't built to dominate, it was built to survive. And survival in evolution always finds a way to resurface. What if one lineage of this creature didn't vanish in the ocean, but crawled inland following the rivers? They call it the weapon of nature. Its anatomy is a blueprint of efficiency and terror. Spined ridges run along its back, forming a natural armor against predators. Its mouth, if you can call it that, is a circular pit lined with retractable hooks and soft, muscular tentacles that sense vibration and heat. Those tendrils can taste movement, tracking the pulse of a beating heart through layers of mud. Its skin secretes a gelatinous coating that resists infection, dehydration, even acid. To touch it is to touch something between flesh and metal, ancient biology turned into armor. It doesn't hunt by sight. It doesn't chase. It waits. The mud is its world. Where others suffocate, it breathes. The mixture of water, soil, and decay that most creatures avoid, this is where the giant river bug thrives. Scientists say mud is just dirt and water. But in nature, mud is the perfect camouflage and the perfect trap. Every ripple becomes a warning, every vibration a signal. And when the current settles again, when silence returns, you never know it was there, until the ground itself starts to move. Reports of this thing go back centuries. Explorers of the 19th century spoke of river worms the size of logs that slithered beneath canoes. A missionary in 1872 described finding a crocodile carcass with what looked like suction wounds across its belly, perfect circles, as if something had latched on and drained it dry. The notes were later dismissed as exaggerations, the kind of jungle fever that infects imagination. But what if they weren't exaggerations? What if the rivers have kept their oldest secret perfectly hidden? An unpublished French expedition journal from 1937, recently found in a maritime archive, tells of a crew who sailed upriver in the Congo to map unexplored tributaries. They set up camp by a slow, muddy channel. 2 nights later, their equipment began disappearing. First fishing nets, then food crates, then a small aluminum boat that simply vanished from the shallows. On the 4th night, one of the men woke to find the mud itself breathing. They recorded what they called a shape rising and falling under the water, like the river floor was alive. Before they could flee, the current shifted. Something long and pale brushed the side of the canoe, heavy enough to tilt it. The journal ends abruptly that night. All that was recovered days later were 2 boots, filled with mud from inside out. For years, those pages sat unread, labeled as hoax material. But when modern biologists compared the descriptions of that supposed riverworm to certain preserved arthropod fossils, they found unsettling similarities. The ridged armor, the tubular form, the segmented structure, the spines. One conclusion kept resurfacing in their private notes: it matches nothing in modern taxonomy. And that's where the myth became more than a story. Because deep in the Amazon and parts of Southeast Asia, satellite scans have picked up something impossible: linear trenches in muddy riverbeds, stretching for hundreds of feet, moving slowly over time. Some say it's shifting silt. Others think it's alive. The crocodile, for millions of years, has been the king of rivers. But kings fall not to armies, only to ghosts. The giant river bug doesn't roar, doesn't chase, doesn't flee. It waits. It feeds. It vanishes. The crocodile was never the king. It was just another meal waiting to be found. They found it at dawn, floating near the bank of a muddy tributary deep inside the Congo Basin. A full-grown crocodile, motionless, its thick armor-like scales still gleaming under the sun. But something was wrong. The body was intact. No missing limbs. No jaguar bite. No sign of a struggle. Only a cluster of circular wounds along its underside. Perfect, symmetrical, and completely drained. There was no blood. No sign of decay. Just a hollow thing, like a shell that had once been alive. Locals said it wasn't the first. In the past year alone, fishermen had pulled out 3 dead crocs, each one marked the same way, as if something had drilled into them and fed from the inside. Scientists suggested parasites, bacteria, or even poachers using chemicals. But the wounds told another story. The edges weren't torn or bitten. They were melted, as though something had dissolved the flesh. That's when the whispers started about the thing from the mud. The hypothesis was terrifyingly simple. This so-called giant river bug didn't kill with claws or fangs. It didn't need to. It attached itself to soft membranes between scales around the eyes or near the throat, where the skin was thinner. Then it secreted enzymes, a biological acid that liquefied muscle tissue from within. It didn't hunt with speed. It hunted with time. It was a predator of infection, not force. Imagine a creature that feeds not by killing, but by waiting. It clings to its prey for days, hidden beneath mud and water, feeding slowly through the open wound it creates. The victim doesn't realize it's dying until it's too weak to swim, too heavy to rise for air. Then the river swallows it whole. What if this thing doesn't kill fast, because it doesn't need to? What if it lets its prey die slowly to feed longer? Mud, the most underestimated element of nature. To us, it's just wet dirt. But to creatures like this, it's something else entirely, a perfect machine for life. Beneath the surface, there's no oxygen, no light, no movement. Just stillness. For most animals, it's suffocation. For the monsters of evolution, it's paradise. Where oxygen ends, evolution begins again. And since 97% of you watching aren't subscribed yet, hit that button now, before we go any deeper. In the deepest layers of riverbeds, organisms thrive that science barely understands. Anaerobic bacteria that live without air. Worms that digest rock. Creatures that have adapted to complete darkness. The mud, with its stability and abundance of decaying matter, becomes not just a habitat, but an incubator. And this is where the legend of the giant river bug begins to make sense. The bobbit worm, a real-life predator found in the oceans of Southeast Asia, hides beneath the sand. It waits for hours, sometimes days, until something passes overhead. Then it strikes, lightning fast, pulling its victim below. Some divers call it the ambush worm from hell. The giant Gippsland earthworm in Australia can grow over 3 feet long and burrow through soil so efficiently that the ground itself seems to breathe. And in the black mud of abyssal plains, newly discovered polychaete worms have been filmed devouring carcasses using chemical secretions instead of teeth. So if such predators already exist in the ocean and underground, what stops one from thriving in rivers, where food is abundant, temperature stable, and the mud deep enough to hide anything? Scientists have a term for this perfect mix of decay, density, and life: the formula of mud. It's an ecosystem built for creatures that should have gone extinct, but didn't. What if this mud is not just the home of the worm, but its weapon? When the current stirs and sediment rises, it's already too late. The creature doesn't emerge from the mud. The mud is the creature. In 2007, a small research expedition set out to study an unmapped branch of the Lualaba River, the upper reaches of the Congo, where human footprints are rare. The mission's goal was simple: measure depth, record microbial activity, and capture samples of sediment. They send drones above and submersible probes below. On the second day, the sonar readings began to fluctuate. Something was moving under the surface, not a fish, not a current, something dense, slow, and heavy. The researchers marked it as a geological anomaly. By the fourth day, communications went silent. When a rescue team arrived a week later, the camp was empty. Tents still zipped, equipment untouched, boats anchored. Only the mud was disturbed, thick, churned, and reeking of sulfur. Among the debris, they found a shattered underwater camera. Most of its footage was unusable, but for 3 frames, enough to change everything. The first showed murky water and scattered bubbles. The second revealed something long and segmented shifting beneath the silt. And the third, just before the lens cracked, captured the impossible. The mud itself rippling outward, as though something massive had inhaled. The report was brief. Only one line stood out in bold. It moved like mud coming alive. The footage was buried, but something else came up with it. Tracks 10 feet long, embedded in the riverbank. No one could explain them. Not crocodiles, not hippos, not machines. The marks were too symmetrical, too smooth, too deliberate. Somewhere deep in those waters, something was still moving. Biologically, the idea of a worm or insect preying on reptiles isn't as impossible as it sounds. Nature is full of parasites that manipulate their hosts. Some eat from within, others alter behavior entirely. In the Amazon alone, more than 30 species of parasitic leeches, fungi, and larvae target animals far larger than themselves. So imagine scaling that biology up, not by size alone, but by time. An arthropod that survived since the Cambrian wouldn't just be strong, it would be chemically perfect. Its body would produce compounds capable of dissolving flesh and neutralizing bacteria, allowing it to feed indefinitely without infection. Its thermal camouflage, that slimy, temperature-stable skin, would render it invisible to infrared vision. Picture the scene. A crocodile basking in the shallows, half submerged, its armored tail swaying lazily with the current. The water is calm, warm, silent. Then a ripple, barely visible. The mud stirs near its hind leg. A single air bubble rises and pops. The crocodile doesn't react. It doesn't feel the danger yet. Beneath the surface, tendrils stretch upward, slow and deliberate. They brush the scaly skin once, twice, tasting. Then they lock on. The creature doesn't pierce, it adheres. Its body shifts, releasing a clear fluid that seeps into the cracks between scales. Within minutes, tissue begins to soften. Within hours, blood flow weakens. The crocodile thrashes too late. The parasite doesn't chase, it waits. The infection does the rest. Days later, the same crocodile drifts downriver, drained and hollow. A ripple on the river's edge, a bubble in the mud, and then silence. The water closes. The hunter becomes the hunted. There's a saying among fishermen in the Amazon, the river gives life, and the river eats it back. Perhaps that's more literal than we think. For 200 million years, crocodiles have reigned as the perfect river predators, unchanged, unstoppable, untouchable. But evolution never ends. And sometimes, what comes next isn't bigger or stronger. It's older, smarter, quieter. If the giant river bug exists, and the evidence suggests something like it could, then the crocodile's time as king may already be over. Because this predator doesn't challenge strength with strength. It conquers through patience. Maybe that's why no one's ever caught one. Maybe that's why there are no fossils. When something dies in mud, it doesn't leave bones. It leaves only more mud. So perhaps the secret isn't hidden in mythology or ancient tales. It's in the river itself. Every swirl of sediment, every shifting current, every silence that lasts too long. The crocodile has ruled for 200 million years. But something far older is still waiting beneath its feet. If this silent terror made your skin crawl, subscribe to BeastFlix. We find monsters. You decide if they're real.